Hey everyone, welcome to today's thrilling adventure into the haunted theatre. Let me introduce to you Jimmy, the daring warrior who boldly decides to delve deep into the ancient theatre that no one dares to set foot in. This mountainside relic has long become a ruin. The once bustling bridge is now just a pile of unlucky wood. Luckily, there was a little boat floating on the water, and Jimmy paddled it across like a pro. The atmosphere was so creepy it could be a horror movie soundtrack. She tiptoed into the theatre, hoping to find some trouble, but it was eerily quiet except for the wind. The scene looked like a spiderweb museum, and when she bent down to check out a book on the floor, a mysterious figure suddenly flashed in the mirror, making Jimmy's heart skip a beat. The content described: the bizarre art of turning people into puppets. Just follow the steps and all coincides sign, a perfect puppet. Just then, Jimmy felt a cold chill on her back, as if an uninvited guest was creeping behind her. Realizing how weird it was, Jimmy couldn't stay any longer and rushed out, while the curator's wife was having an enthusiastic chat with the puppet. When her husband caught her, she shouted that the puppet could talk, but the curator, fearing Marley's eyes wrath, decided to take the puppet away and bury it again. Thus, as he was about to leave, a woman's hushed voice suddenly echoed from the wall, making him instantly anxious, thinking his wife had dug herself into the wall. Once again, what an extraordinary bizarre scene. So he decided to climb into the wall to call her out, but as the curator cautiously crawled inside, the door behind him suddenly slammed shut, and no matter how he called for her, there was no answer. Just then, he heard Marley's voice, and his heart sank. He knew he couldn't escape his fate. Meanwhile, Jimmy found her dad again because she discovered information about missing kids in the old theatre, and she was super curious about how everything connected. But her dad realized he could no longer keep it a secret, so he had to spill the beans. Back in the day, when Jimmy's uncle was a kid, he mysteriously disappeared, and Marley's was definitely the prime suspect. Back then, they recklessly grabbed a woman, forced her to scream, and then cut out her tongue. Soon after, everyone connected to the case in town began to mysteriously drop dead, and each one had their tongue cut out to talk about a real-life hell. And this curse kept repeating until they were completely wiped out, and that's why he tried to kick Jimmy out of the house. It was actually to protect Jimmy from harm, even if she thought he was a cruel dad. But since Jimmy's wife passed away, she finally understood that the truth couldn't be escaped, and knowing everything made her realize her mission. The nightmare of Marley's had to end with her generation, so Jimmy was determined to retrieve the puppets from the curator. But just as she stepped out, she ran into Lipton, who asked how she managed to borrow the puppet again. Turns out, Lipton noticed the puppet was missing during the day and went to the graveyard to see if Jimmy buried it. But who knew? All the puppets for 100 had vanished from the graveyard. Now he seriously suspected Jimmy was pulling a fast one, as nobody in town recognized Marley's eye. Jimmy knew Lipton wouldn't believe her and didn't want to explain any further, but just then, Marley's called pretending to be the curator, urging her to meet at the old theatre, claiming that once they met, the truth would be revealed. But Sheriff Lipton wasn't buying any of that. He was tired of Jimmy's ghost stories. So, to prove her innocence, Jimmy shoved Lipton out of the way and sped toward the old theatre, and Lipton had no choice but to follow. Having come here once during the day, Jimmy was quite familiar with the route, and hopped onto the little boat with and Lipton, being the sheriff, still had his professional pride intact. He brought a flashlight and a shotgun along. He followed Jimmy's figure into the darkness, and soon after, they met again in the old theatre. Jimmy insisted that the curator was indeed inside at that very moment, but Lipton expressed her doubts about it, since she had previously mentioned hearing the sounds of two boats gliding by and eerie noises emanating from the theatre had left both of them on edge. Looks like there was more to the theatre. Just then, a woman's singing echoed from behind the wall. Immediately, Jimmy asked Lipton to grab a lantern, as she wanted to see who was behind all this performance. She warned Lipton that no matter what happened, he must not scream. With that, Jimmy vanished from Lipton's sight, and he hurried to catch up. Holding a weapon, he insisted Jimmy walked behind him. Suddenly, Lipton tripped over a puppet and thought Jimmy was trying to scare him on purpose. He immediately tossed it away, only to knock off a piece of wall covering, revealing over 100 puppets lined up neatly in a glass case. Jimmy stepped forward to examine them closely. Someone must have brought them back. But then she noticed something behind Lipton. There was a figure covered with red cloth. After getting Lipton's nod of approval, Jimmy pulled it back, revealing a long-dried corpse. At that moment, the puppets in the cabinet started to turn their heads, all staring to the left as if reminding them not to miss something, until finally a swaying puppet appeared on the left. Jimmy cautiously called out Marley's name, and to her surprise, he responded. She asked why he had to kill those people, and the puppet replied that he must keep them silent. Honestly, that little boy from back then was indeed turned into a puppet by Marley's as if performing in front of 1,000 watchers. He showcased his skills under everyone's gaze. If you enjoyed this weird and wonderful story, don't forget to like and subscribe.